Hey there, welcome back to No Recipe Required. Hope you're doing well. I'm Dave. Today I'm going to make some homemade pasta. Now I've done that before for you. One of the nice things I like about making my own pasta though is you can add lots of different flavors to it and really be pretty creative. Today, as opposed to my just standard regular pasta dough, I'm actually going to show you how to do a pecorino black peppercorn pasta. We're going to add some of that cheese, some of the pecorino cheese and some black pepper to the dough while we're making it. It'll add a nice kind of pungent flavor to it. Okay, here we are with our flour. I use regular all-purpose flour. This is probably about 2 cups worth, and I've got 3 eggs that I'm just going to go ahead and pour into the well. If your well's too small, if it looks like it's going to get kind of overflowed, just go ahead and push it out a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and mix in the eggs with the flour. I'm going to add about a half a tablespoon of olive oil in there as well, and just go ahead and mix those together. And once I just get it started, I'm going to go ahead and mix in. You got to be a little careful so you don't break it and have the egg going all over the place. What I'm going to do though, to get some of that flavor in there, is grate a good amount of freshly ground black pepper into the pasta. And I like to use a fairly fine grind so you don't get those big pieces of pepper in there. And then I've also got some pecorino cheese that I grated myself on the most fine side of a cheese grater. You want it fine so that it blends in well with the egg and the pasta there. And I've probably got a quarter to a third of a cup or so. And I'm just going to go ahead and mix that in with the dough and do the exact same method that I always do. And we'll just get this incorporated. And once we do, we'll come back. Okay, so you can see the pasta. It's starting to come together. It's still super wet. It's sticking to my fingers. So I'm just going to continue working in the flour and drying that liquid. Well, you're not really drying it out, but you're incorporating the liquid and the solids together. If you end up, sometimes you'll end up with more flour, sometimes more flour than you need. Sometimes you'll end up having to add a little bit of flour. If you need to add, just throw it on the board and work it into the dough. And you're looking for that nice kind of firm texture. You don't want the dough sticking to your fingers at all. That's kind of how you know you've got enough flour worked into the pasta dough. And just kind of keep working it. And once you've got that nice texture or enough flour worked in, I spend about 10 minutes or so, maybe 7 or 8 minutes at this point, just kneading it out, giving it a squeeze with one hand and then a press down with the other, and that continues to incorporate the right amount of flour into the dough. So I've got my pasta now. I let it rest for I let it rest for about a couple hours because I wanted to get it done a couple hours before dinner and spend my time on something else. Perfectly fine to do. And I just divide it in half so it's a little bit easier to work with, and dusted my board with some flour. Pound it out, or don't flatten it out a little bit, just so you can get it into the machine a little bit easier. And then we'll go ahead and roll it out. And I will run it through. And I want to show you, try and show you a close-up of the pasta as well. Remember, we put that pecorino and peppercorn in there, and you can see it's got those black spots on there, and that's obviously the peppercorn that is in there, and it still smells. It smells fragrant of that pecorino cheese that is going to really come through once we cook it. I'm going to go ahead and roll out the rest of my pasta, and then I'll show you a couple different ways to cut it. Alright, so here I've got the pasta rolled out as well. Now this is good if you either roll out the pasta by hand or have a hand crank, or somehow don't have the attachment to cut the pasta, we're going to go ahead and do it by hand. I lay it down and then get a good amount of flour on the pasta sheet itself on the top, because you don't want it sticking. And then we just fold it up on itself into a little roll. And you're not pressing down, you just kind of barely put any pressure on it at all. And then you go ahead and take a knife and just manually obviously, you go through and cut however thick you want those pasta strands to be. This will obviously look a little bit more rustic because you're doing it by hand. Obviously all the pieces won't be the exact same size, but you can see you get the same effect. And because we put in all that flour on top, they should unroll pretty easily. Again, once you get them unrolled, you want to coat in flour so they don't stick together, and then cook them just like you would the same rolled out pasta. I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting these up, and then we'll cook it up. You can see this is a little bit thinner. You know, you do it however you want. It's totally up to you. Flavored pastas though like this are great. Like I said in the beginning, you can use spinach, basil, lots of different things. I encourage you to do it, and I'll see you next time on No Recipe Required.